The reigning champions are out. England hold on to Le Crunch. The Canadians are into their second Rugby World Cup final, and the French lose to England for a 17th consecutive time. Here's everything you need to know from the semi-finals weekend in the Women's Rugby World Cup. Hi everyone, Tash here from her side of the Ruck. What a weekend was it in the semi-finals of the Women's Rugby World Cup with wins for Canada and England. It sets up the bronze medal match between New Zealand and France, and then the ultimate goal of gold and silver between Canada and England. In this video, I'll be rounding up the action from the semi-finals this weekend and also giving some previews and takeaways of what we might expect to see in the finals this coming week. Starting off with the first semi-final between the Black Ferns and Canada, well, the Canadians, they came out on top with a 34-19 scoreline, and they came off the blocks very, very quickly. The Canadians went 19-0 up, and I think it was a shock to a lot of people in the rugby world, but to others it wasn't, because Canada's cohesion in this tournament goes to show why they are ranked number 2 in the world. And whilst the Black Ferns did strike back in the 26th minute, the margin that the Canadians had built up meant that in the second half, they were basically defending against the New Zealanders and they just couldn't claw it back. For me, the story of that match was Canada put out a fantastic 80-minute performance and played their best form of rugby. And I just don't think the Black Ferns were as good as they have been in the past. They kind of were their own worst enemy at one point, giving away a lot of penalties which the Canadians capitalised on. But also there were several knock-ons, even when they put together some beautiful attacking phases of play against an amazing Canadian defence. They knocked it on, and that can kill a lot of momentum. And I feel like in the second half, the Black Ferns found a lot more momentum and started to finish a lot stronger than they started. But it just wasn't enough when Canada had a 19-0 lead 24 minutes in. Let's break down some of the stats in this game. Now, I predicted before this match that Canada were going to win in the set piece and the Black Ferns were going to finish strong and throw the ball around a lot out wide. But both of the teams had 100% scrum success, but it was in the line-out that there was a key difference. Canada had a 93% line-out success versus an 80% for the Black Ferns. The aerial battle was also another strength to Canada's game. Alex Tezier, she has a magical boot and was just going for the kicking territory game, and that really worked in Canada's favour, and it seemed that New Zealand didn't adapt as well to this as they could have done in this game, and that's how Canada got territory. That's how they set up a couple of tries, and it just shows how good the kicking game has improved in the women's game, which makes it so exciting to watch. But that aerial battle is definitely one of Canada's strengths. I think there were a lot of really great individual performances in this semi-final, but I'm going to touch on the winners of this semi-final and the second-time finalist, Canada. The player of the match, Justine Pelletier, she was sniping everywhere, and even her replacement, Liv Apps, who came onto the field, who has been a standout player for me in this tournament. She always does such a great job in the defensive line and just comes and steadies the ship. And I think that the tactics of the substitutions for the Canadians has been very well thought out, and I feel like at scrum half, both of these women have played outstandingly. I also have to give an honourable mention to the captain, Sophie de Goody. She scores a try, she kicks 3 conversions, she slots a penalty, she's a forward, but her kicking for posts is really, really consistent. And those 14 points that she scored for her side, well, that was part of the big gap between the Kiwis and the Canadians. So Sophie de Goody, it's well deserved that she has been nominated for Women's World 15s Player of the Year. She has led her team into their second Rugby World Cup final. Moving on to the second semi-final between France and England, or better known as Le Crunch. Prior to this game, England had beaten France 16 consecutive times, but they stretch it on to a 17th time by beating the French 35-17, even though the scoreline was a lot lower and a lot tighter at half-time. If anyone was going to upset England, it probably would have been the French team. But England showed their skills and came out the blocks in the second half, neck for neck, and a couple of tries from Kildunn and a last-minute try from Meg Jones kind of settled the score, and it makes England into another final, but this time on home soil. This was definitely one of the best performances that the French put together, a lot more cohesive, keeping England out in the defence. They were also showing nice phases of attack. Potentially the English were a bit nervous, but how can you not be? You're playing a team that you play so many times that really tested you in the final round of the Women's Six Nations. So this was always going to be a fantastic game, and it was definitely neck for neck, point for point, especially in the first half. I think the main differences in points of attack for both teams were France, basically how they scored their 3 tries was by drawing in the forwards and then sending the ball out wide and using the wingers or using a player on the outside channels to come in and then score by wrapping up the defence just outside the try area around 5-10 metres out. Whereas England have shown that they can score from the set piece, whether it's a line-out, whether it's a scrum. But on this occasion, Amy Cocaigne's try at the start of the second half, that came from a line-out, driving maul and powering it forward, which is often how we see England score tries from that set piece. But you also have players like Ellie Kildunn play in broken play. She's just got the power and the speed to get over that line. And as soon as she's got the ball, she's looking for the try line. Meg Jones as well, also nominated for Women's World 15's Player of the Year, got a last-minute try on the 79th minute that just kind of settled the score and gave England some breathing space going into the final few seconds of that match. So it just goes to show that the two different teams had slightly different ways of attacking and how to get the ball over that try line. I think also there was lots of small margins when it came down to kicking for post. You had Zoe Harrison, who's the Red Roses fly half. She had 100% kicking for post in this match. How great is that? And again, testament to how well the kicking game has improved in the women's game. Versus Morgane Bourgeois for the French, she's only slotted 1 out of 3 kicks for posts. And just looking at the possession stats, France had 61% possession versus England, who had 39% possession. Now, if that isn't a reflection on how clinical England can be when it comes to attack, I don't know what else is. Moving on to the finals weekend, first of all, previewing the bronze medal match between New Zealand and France. Well, historically, the Black Ferns have come out on top with 7 wins against France versus the French only winning 5 times against the Kiwis. The last time out these two sides played each other was in October 2024. The Black Ferns beat France 39 points to 14. But prior to that, in 2023 and 2022, there was only 1 point in between each side on the scoreboard with 1 game apiece to go into each side. There's a lot riding on this match because only one team is going to be able to take home a medal, and that is the bronze medal. Given the Kiwis' experience in knockout rugby, they statistically would be more likely to win this game. But just going off the semi-final form, I feel like both teams hadn't really strung a full 80 minutes together. The Black Ferns have started fairly slowly, but had really strong finishes in this tournament. France can fluctuate whether they start really strong or finish really strong. Both have shown that they love to play fast-flowing rugby, playing the ball out wide, using the backline players. These are two teams that do have quite a familiar style, and it could be a really exciting game, running the ball, being really physical in the forwards. But what I think France showed really well at the weekend is how well they can tighten up teams to then strip it out wide, as I think New Zealand are fantastic at exploiting in broken play, in open space, and just finding the gaps around the 50-metre line and just running the ball through hand. Hopefully, we will see lots of that in this bronze medal match. Moving on to the final between Canada and England. These are the 2 top teams in the world, with England ranked at world number 1 and Canada ranked at world number 2. And arguably, they are 2 teams who have very similar styles of rugby. Very strong set piece, can create attacking phases from kind of anywhere in the field because they have the individual players to do so. They both like the aerial game, but it really depends on their opponent how much they rely on the boot. And they've also got some fabulous kickers that can slot conversions and penalties. This final does have the potential to be a very low scoring game because both sides have incredible defence. In the entirety of this tournament, England have made 887 tackles and Canada have made 750. But saying that, both nations rank in the top teams for try scorers. You've also got some of the top point scorers in this competition in both of these sides. So it could go either way. It could be a really low scoring game and a lot of physical battles in the field, or we could see some absolutely stellar tries. I think where Canada will look to exploit England in the attack is when they're about 5-10 metres out, because this is what the French did very well in the semi-final, is try and wrap up the English defence, which is really solid. But when you draw in so many players and then there's space outside to pass it to the winger or to another backline player, you should do that as a team. And France did that very well in the semi-finals this weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised if Canada ended up doing a similar thing. England will look to rely on their set piece, and particularly John Mitchell will look to rely on that rotation in the forwards. We saw it against France when they were having a bit of a wobble. They rotated out the front row with a complete new 16, 17, 18 in the forwards, and that did change the momentum of the game. My predictions for this game is that we'll see a real range of attack and defence, because both teams have shown that they're capable of doing it. And really, these are the top two teams in women's rugby in the world. We are in for a treat this weekend in the final of the Women's Rugby World Cup. As a full disclaimer, I am English, so I will be backing the Red Roses to win this weekend. And my goodness, I really hope they can do it on home soil. But for the neutrals, I do hope it's a really tight margin, but purely for the reasons of my heart, I hope it isn't. But this is going to be such a fabulous contest, and I know that it will come down to the wire. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and feel free to drop a comment below. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot to us. And thank you so much. We have now surpassed 300 followers. Our next goal is 350. So if you can help us reach that mark, that means a lot to us. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.